Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. I hope you're doing well this morning. And we will be talking about Pogba's drop in value, which is quite big news. Jack Grealish, Tolisso from Bayern Munich, and some interesting quotes from Haaland. But I want to start off some positivity, because I think positivity at the moment is the thing that keeps us going. There's not loads of it, so you must grab it. And Marcus Rashford's been talking about his return to fitness. I think it's very interesting that if we hadn't had this crisis, imagine if we hadn't and football had just carried on in the normal sense. Marcus Rashford is basically saying that he's ready to step it up physically. It's the mental battle now as to not pushing himself too far, not too hard. Doesn't want to go back and get injured. Remember, this is a stress fracture of the back, so you've got to be very careful about your recovery. And what are we? We're like the 9th of April today. So I think if we carried on as normal, Rashford, Ollie'd said if we see him before May, it would be great. And I think maybe we would have seen Rashford towards the end of April, maybe the start of May. So that's interesting. But I think what we'll definitely see with Rashford is when we do return, he will return. So he's got time. There is no positives about this crisis. People are dying, as we know. But in a footballing sense, if you can ever say this, which I'm going to say, I suppose, because it is a football show, Marcus Rashford, this break, will help Manchester United on the pitch when he comes back, because we will get him for those final 9 games, which we wouldn't have got if the season had carried on. And that's not... I'm not saying, and nobody's going to say, well, that's the good thing about this, because there's nothing good about this in any level. No one wants this to be happening. But Rashford is ready to step it up, and we will have him back for those games when and if the season gets done. So good to hear that Marcus Rashford's on the mend, because that injury could have been longer. It could have been a lot longer. So it's good news in relation to him. Let's talk about what the title is then. Paul Pogba, transfer value dropping. I mean, some would say this isn't really surprising, but Transfer Market, which I'm sure a lot of people use as a website, I think it's German-based. They've spoken to 300 experts about the transfer market, and Paul Pogba's been used as sort of an experiment, really, as to what his value has dropped. And 20%, a third of the people they spoke to said that the transfer market will drop by 20%, and 2/3 are saying 50%, which puts Paul Pogba's value, as far as they're concerned, down from 100 million to 80 million euros, which is 73 million pounds. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I don't think Pogba's value was 100 million euros in the first place. I thought it was more 150 million euros, about 130 million pounds. And I think his value may have dropped to about 90 million now. But I do not accept that it's dropped to 73, but their starting point was higher. I think the more interesting thing is the amount of transfer experts they've spoken to who are saying that the value of the market's going to drop by 15 to 20%, which isn't actually as much as I thought. I thought we could see drops of up to 50%, because I think that, as we were talking about last night, some clubs are going to need to sell. And look, if you need to sell and people know you need to sell, can you sit there and go, well, this player was worth 40 million in March, because of the adjustment of the market, we want 30 million. I think clubs will say, we'll give you 20, take it or leave it. So, and Borussia Dortmund, in relation to Jadon Sancho, they're already saying, well, we're not taking anything less than 100 million because it's still a seller's market. There's interest in him. And that's why I don't think you can ever say in a blanket sort of way across the transfer market there's been a 15 to 20% or 30 to 40% or 50% reduction in transfers, because it's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market, and it depends what the asset is. And if you've got an asset that everybody wants, like a Jadon Sancho, then the value probably won't drop much at all. It may stabilise, it may be a little bit more. And if you've got a player that people are like, well, I'm not sure whether I want them, then their value drops a lot. I mean, look, Phil Jones. We were talking about £12 million for Phil Jones from Newcastle. That could go down to £2 million now, because people could just go, no, I don't really want him. I'm not going to pay anywhere near that. So depends how valuable your asset is. I think Dortmund are in a strong position with Jadon Sancho, because if United say we're only giving you 60, Liverpool or Chelsea will go, we'll give you 80. Real Madrid might go, we'll give you 100. So it's not going to impact on a player like him. With Paul Pogba, I think it's a more interesting, relevant point, which is why the Transfer Market website probably used him as part of their example. I think with Paul Pogba, you're going to have a player that's pushing for a move, and I don't think there's a massive buyer's market for Paul Pogba. Juventus and Real Madrid, but who out of those two can really afford him, and will Pogba push for the move? So I don't think United are going to be like Dortmund with Sancho, where they can say, yeah, we want 100 million or anything like that. We might have to take a little bit less if he's to go. But we're definitely going to see a new transfer market, and I think it would be unrealistic for us to say that Pogba's retained his value. I don't think there's probably one or two players, the United, if they were going to be sold this summer, that would retain their value. Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, Bruno Fernandes, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because these are very good performing players for United, like Sancho is for Dortmund. But your Pogbas of this world, your Mesut Ozils of this world, good players that haven't had great seasons, their value will dip in this. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I still expect Paul Pogba to stay at Manchester United. Also, let me just talk to you about this one first before I talk about Grealish. Corentin Tolisso, 25 years of age, midfielder, went to Bayern Munich, not actually getting that much game time. There's a story coming through Sport Witness via Foot Mercato that Manchester United, Arsenal, Napoli, Juventus and Atletico Madrid are looking at Tolisso. He's hardly played at all for Bayern Munich, and I wouldn't take him. I think he's a bit injury prone as far as I'm concerned, and I think there's better options that United can go for. But the interesting thing about Tolisso is that he only moved to Bayern Munich for around 37 million quid, and in this market there's just no way his value is going to go up. So if you're talking about the 15 to 20% drop and the fact that he's not playing for them, you could pick up a player like Tolisso for 20 to 25 million pounds, which suddenly makes my ears prick up, and I'm sure it does yours. There could be some really big bargains there, and he's in a much, if Pogba's value is dropping because he's not at the top of his game and he's been injured, well, how much is Talisso's dropping? You've got clubs will be looking at what people paid for that player before and whether that price has gone up or down. So we paid 90 million for Pogba. Has it gone up or down? You could argue. But if Bayern Munich have paid, say, 40 million for Tolisso, well, he's not playing much, and he's not part of the Bayern Munich plan, so his price has got to come down. So suddenly you're thinking, well, actually, he might be worth a punt. But do I see him coming to United? Probably not. But this is the thing, the complexities. It'd be interesting. We've got a very interesting interview that Flex is doing today, actually, with somebody who's very good on the transfers, and we're going to be asking him about that. But Jack Grealish, in the Evening Standard, mentioned again as a prime target for Manchester United. I'm not so sure what you think about this. I'm not so sure what I think about Grealish. My mind just keeps wandering back to Grealish in February time, when there was this talk of United wanting to get deals done early so that values didn't go up or down. Up, really. They don't mind if they go down. And maybe United had done a lot of work on the Grealish deal. The interesting thing is, in a lot of the Villa fan forums, etc., they're saying if we're going to give Man United Grealish, then we want Twansebi in return. Well, I don't think that's how it works straight away. I don't think United are in a position where we need to be giving up a player for Grealish. I'm sure Villa might ask that because Twansebi was at Villa last season, and it'd be interesting whether United would be tempted to do that. I don't think that they would, because Eric Bay's injury record is still dubious. Then you've just got Lindelof, Maguire and Jones. So Twansebi, I think, is a big part of... I think Solskjaer wants to get Twansebi involved in the first team football, but you never know what Twansebi wants to do himself. But more interesting is the fact that Grealish is still considered by many to be a major target for United this summer, and it's difficult. It's difficult because I think when you go beyond Sancho, what is United's next bit of business that they're looking at? I think anybody can predict we're going to sign Sancho, and if it doesn't happen, we lost out to whoever. But I don't think anybody can really predict what the next deal is after that. And I suppose if I had the transfer meter up, which I won't be putting up till next month, I probably would have Grealish after Sancho out as in the top 7 sort of most likely signings, and it's difficult below Sancho to think who United might be looking at. So I'd be interested to think what you think about that. But yeah, Grealish being mentioned again. Also, Erling Haaland has been doing an interview. We mentioned about what he'd said about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the other day about him coaching him, but he also spoke quite interestingly about not wanting to go above his level. His career is pretty impressive. It's not impressive because he didn't come to United, but his career is pretty impressive in what he's done. From Mulder to Salzburg to Dortmund, and he will move on somewhere else. But what he was basically saying is it's about his career so far is about going to the club that he can do well at. Not where he might do well or there might be a player better than him in his position. He wants to go somewhere where he's going to play a lot of football and he believes he's going to do well. And it's like a ladder. It's moving himself up gradually rather than overreaching and stretching. And, I don't like his relationship with Mino Raiola. I really don't like that. But in relation to it, he said, Salzburg was perfect for me. We knew that was the right move. Champions League football, right sort of level, did very well. Dortmund appears to be the same. So it's about going to that next level, and I just wonder whether Will Haaland come to United? I don't think he will. I think there'll always be the links with Haaland because of the relationship with Solskjaer. But the Mino Raiola thing is far more relevant in Erling Haaland's life now than the past relationship with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And we know it's a great relationship between Solskjaer and Haaland and his dad, etc. Norwegian connection, Mulder connection. But the point is, his agent's Mino Raiola, and that's the most important relationship that Haaland has now. That is a massive barrier for him to come to United. It's not impossible, but would he look? Where's he going to go after Dortmund? I think the next move, knowing Mino Raiola, I can see it being Italy and then Spain, and maybe he skips Premier League, but I don't see him coming to United. But it's interesting what he said about the step-ups, and I think Dortmund to United probably would be the next step-up. Maybe Sancho can have a chat with him and say, come and join me later. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Tolisso, Haaland. Just going back to Pogba a bit, there's a story in AS, which is in Spain, and they're basically saying that Real Madrid may not look at Pogba anymore. They might look at Camavinga, who is playing for Rennes in the French league. A lot of you, Eduardo Camavinga, midfielder, young player, looks like he's going to be a future star. This wouldn't surprise me if Real Madrid didn't bother with Pogba and went for Camavinga, because there's a large proportion of our fan base who would say, let Real Madrid get Pogba, we'll get Camavinga, and that's better for what United are trying to build, because United know they're not going to win the league next year, and maybe not the year after, but maybe the year after that. We're building for something in a couple of years' time. In a couple of years' time, Pogba's going to be knocking on the door of 30, whereas a player like Camavinga can come in over the next 2 years and develop into the player everyone thinks he's going to be. And that would be the better signing. But it wouldn't surprise me if we retain Pogba and Real Madrid go and get a player like Camavinga, or Juventus go and get him, because that's probably the sort of player United should be looking at in this new future vision. But an interesting story, because I know a lot of you quite like Camavinga, so I thought I would mention him as well. But look, in a global sense, I think we're entering into a very, very pivotal couple of weeks. Life lessons first, stay in, stay home, very, very important. How does football fit into that? I still think there's a lot of sensationalist doom merchants out there saying, oh, void football. We don't need to void football. We need to focus on the next 2 weeks in a live way, because this is real. People are dying. They're not just numbers, and it's very important we play our part in that. And of course, I agree with people who say football's not important. If they want to think that, that's fine. For some of us, it's still escapism. But I think over the next 2 weeks, if they can start to get these numbers and curves down, we'll still be sort of mid to late April in 2 weeks. And then you've got maybe, another week before the end of April, 3 weeks' time, into May. Then you start really thinking about, we're into the proper summer now. What can we do football-wise? So I think the next couple of weeks, it's just going to be a difficult time for everybody, and I think when we come out the back end of April, we will really start to see across Europe as well what people are planning to do, because I do think that there will be domestic leagues back in probably Germany, maybe Spain, maybe Italy before the Premier League, so we'll have to just keep an eye on that. But thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. We've got a live interview for you at 1 o'clock. Flex and Darren Bent, pundit for TalkSport, ex-player for Spurs and Charlton. He will be on it with Flex at 1 o'clock, so get involved with that. We've got a good couple of interviews coming up for you over the next few days for the Easter weekend. We've kept some back, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for watching. I'm back at 8 o'clock tonight live.